lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
Half-second lead on with the sizzling car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to round 9 of the ATCC ATCC Championship, thanks to Automobilista Australia and TCAC. I'm Michael Floodman Zelavari, and joining me tonight isn't our usual co-commentator, Kiwi Chris. Instead, tonight we have Nether, Steve DeBreeze. Welcome, Nether.
G'day, mate. Thanks for having me aboard yet again for another one of these streams. And yeah, happy to be filling in for Kiwi Chris Riddell, who's, I believe he's a little bit under the weather, but he also had some prior engagements as well, didn't he?
Yes, today is, for those playing along at home, is actually his anniversary with his wonderful fiancée. So he elected to take tonight off and spend some time with her, the lucky bastard.
In other words.
Yeah. But yeah, so he's out tonight. It is just myself and Nether, so I am running the stream. So if there's any problems with the stream, please let me know. Because once again, doing this by the seat of our pants. We are tonight here at Sandown International Raceway, of course. A track that you are actually quite familiar with, Nether.
Oh, absolutely. We've spent enough time down here during the normal racing season when we go to all of the local state series events. We go here twice a year. Bit devoid of racing activity in present tense because there hasn't been a race meeting here since the last one I was at in February, which was the only state race meet to be held all year long, with the championship pretty much put on ice and now officially cancelled. There's no champions in state racing, but we had a bit of a couple of mix of weather conditions in the last 2 times we've been there. We've had some blistering sun and some blowing gales and a bit of rain as well. So it's one of those circuits that if you are out in the sun, it's very difficult to find a spot to get some shade other than the grandstand, and if it's raining, it's very difficult to get away from the rain other than the grandstand.
Yeah, I can certainly back that up from my own experiences at Sandown. Both times I've been for the V8, I've been marshalling, which is on the other end of the circuit. The 2 times I've been there, once at turn 4 and at turn 9, and there really is no shelter from the elements at all. And on a typical Sandown weekend, you get to experience all of the elements, sometimes all at once.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. You can get a little bit of everything at Sandown, and as I said, there's pretty much almost zero respite from the elements aside from the main grandstand. But even when it's blowing a gale, it's still very hard to get away from it in the grandstand because it's such a big, open, expansive grandstand. It's open at either end, it's open at the front, and the wind just whips around something shocking. So very difficult to keep away from that. And then in one year, I think it might have been last year, there was actually a pretty decent windstorm overnight, and a number of competitors were told, take down your tent because they'll go flying, and those that didn't, well, they found themselves without a tent, or a tent that was toppled over on top of a race car come the Sunday morning.
Oh, that's certainly very unfortunate. It's kind of crazy how big those windstorms can get through Melbourne. I'm very glad that I don't live in Melbourne because of that. You have enough trouble with the weather here in Adelaide. We'll have a bit more of a closer look at the race info for tonight. Of course, we're running our normal qualifying and 50-minute race length tonight, but Nether, it's going to throw a bit of a spanner in the works with those long straights. Might throw problems up for fuel economy and a bit of a less of a worry in tyres.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. They call this place the home of horsepower, and with very good reason. The pretty much the reason for it is if you've got 8 cylinders formed in the shape of a V, you are going to be doing some pretty stellar speeds coming down the front strip and the back strip, or the drag strips as we like to call them. You don't spend a huge amount of time having to corner here. The corners on the back straight are pretty much flat at turn 5. The real challenge is coming down the hill at turn 6. Now, we're running the older version of the layout, the newer version that has all that asphalt runoff in the outside of turn 6 hasn't been modelled into AMS just yet. So a little bit of an added challenge for some of these drivers. And there's a few raised curbs in a few spots as well, where we see a couple of cars will get up on 2 wheels as they attack places like the turn 2 and 3 chicane, and through turn 4 as well, if you get your turn in point all wrong there. But the real one that we want to keep an eye out for is how much time a lot of these cars, especially the Commodores, can gain heading up the back straight and down the front straight into turn 1.
And not just the Commodores now, but also the Sierras. Looking at the practice times, it is currently last night's GT3 Sprint Series champion, Peter Savage, at the top of the timesheets, driving in Lewis Wedding's regular Sierra. So the Sierras here will be very strong as well.
And not only to go even one step further, there are 4 different manufacturers at the moment in the back end of practice. Inside the top 5, we've got a Sierra out front from a Commodore, from a Nissan, from another Sierra, and then a 240 Volvo. So there's a few guys starting to find some time and pretty closely matched, the exception being that a couple of guys have started to go into their qualifying runs now.
Yeah, true that. We'll have a look at the point standings now, and after last round's Synergy Sim Lockout of the podium, with Hobbo, Nolan, and Rasmussen gaining the rostrum, it's really closed the gap at the top of the standings. Devonish holding a 1-point advantage at this stage of the series.
Yeah, extremely close up front. Will's had a bit of a groove on for the middle part of the season. I think there was about a 2 or 3 race stretch where he really started to come into his own with the Mercedes. And in the last couple of rounds, he's just been a little bit off kilter. The big one for him was a DNF at the last round, classified 23rd out of 25 cars and didn't score any points. Fortunately for him, that means that that's a drop round in the standings. So it did cut the margin down significantly to 1 point. And we've got to keep in mind here too, Flood, that the points you're seeing on offer on your screen are including the points that are dropped in a drop round. And that's updated round on round by Scott Nolan. So Scott's doing a good job keeping tabs on who's finished where and what their worst results are. But we didn't have that for the first sort of 3 or 4 rounds. But now we're really starting to see just how close this championship really is.
Yeah, and it's kind of showing a difference in strategy between the Synergy Sim Racing guys who have picked a car that's been good at every round versus Will Devonish, who's picked a car which is great at some rounds and then a bit of a challenge at a round like we will have here tonight at Sandown. Just a quick look at the calendar before we get qualifying underway, and you can see we are at Sandown, round 9, which means we have only 2 rounds left of the regular season before the big enduro at Mount Panorama. So it's really right at the pointy end now, and that means that for anyone at that top end, they really don't want to be having too many more bad rounds. Qualifying is just about to start, so we'll go and see if we can find everyone at the end of the lane, and there they are.
There is a big log jam at the end of pit lane. I'm counting at least a dozen cars, if not more, headed by Hans Brunswick. So he's out first, and it looks like one of the Matt Harvey Repair and Tune Commodores behind him. And, oh, look, everybody fighting to get out of pit lane. Very short session, so very short and sharp.
Yeah, I've got the static cam held off, just watching the end of pit lane. You can just see the cars just file out. There's only 2 or 3 that have stayed in the garage. Looks like that's Mike Coulston and Dane Liccardo who have stayed in there. And then that's also Rhodey and one of the MHRT Commodores. A few different
Harvey's in there as well.
Yeah, a few different liveries this tonight. Sandown, of course, being the traditional retro round in the supercars. So we've got a bit of an anti-retro theme going with a few updated liveries for tonight. So you can just see in the middle of shot there a MHRT, that's Scott Murrell in a Commodore behind Hans Brunswick. He's got a bit of a different paint scheme. We'll see if we can find another one as we cycle through the field. There we go, there's Termo in the Ned's Mustang Commodore. That's a bit of a mouthful. There's the Scott Murrell MHRT Commodore coming through to start his lap. And Brock Harvey as well. Whereabouts is my favorite car of the evening? There it is, Steve Bulger in the BMW GT2 M3 art car livery. That's a beautiful looking car. Unfortunately, he's not had the best of practice runs tonight because, of course, he's in a BMW. But a few nice looking cars, and here's another good one, Adam Kerrison in a Shell Helix sort of reimagined there. So let's see, the first ones on their flying lap are away. Let's see if we can catch. Here's Hans and Murrell coming around turn 4, and they'll be the first ones to set a first sector time, 27.5 for Hans, and we'll jump on board for the second half of the lap.
Yeah, Murrell was glued to the back of Hans through the opening couple of corners, so Brunswick's time at Sector 1 was a 27.5. Murrell behind him was a 27.5 as well. Pete Savage behind them already at 27.1, 4 tenths quicker. He's literally just a couple of cars behind this pair out in front. They're separated by Brenton Hobson, who's the third car in the train, and Hobbo was a 27.4, so he's provisionally going to go P2 as Murrell's nose bumping on the rear of Hans Brunswick's Volvo through the final couple of corners, giving him the hurry up. Clearly thinks he's got a bit more speed on board. 1:13 for Hans, immediately surpassed by Hobbo's 12.5. And what happened to Pete Savage? Did he board a lap here, or did he make a mistake?
I'm not sure of Pete Savage. I haven't seen him out on track. Of course, this isn't a one-shot qualifying. You've got as many laps as you like. So if Pete's made a mistake, he's got a chance to get back in and go again. Yeah, he's running the Sandown special livery tonight. That should have been run. And let's see if we can have
Found out what happened to him. He actually he got too much on the outside grass off the final corner, and then pretty much spun off of across the pit lane entry and out. So he was just a little bit too greedy at the final corner.
And he's been having trouble in the final sector as well. He's been consistently doing great laps for the first 3 quarters in that Sierra, and then absolutely chucking it away, going either over turn 6 into Dandenong Road or even in the last corner as well. So he's certainly going to be one to watch, but he might be the one making mistakes late on in the session. Let's see.
Got eyes on Luke Rosella at the moment here, mate. He's currently P2, was purple to Sector 1, was pretty close to the best time through Sector 2. He was about 3 tenths up, just tucked in behind Licardo's VL at the moment. Very aggressive on the outside at the final corner, or final real proper corner, turn 12 is 13, and he's gone to the top, not by very much, only 700ths in that one, just ahead of Hobbo.
And Hobbo has had a bit of a scrappy lap. We just saw him catching air underneath the left-hand side of the car through turn 3. He'll catch his first sector time here, and he's quite a fair ways away, so he's not going to improve. Cracker's just jumped up into 3rd place in the CRT Sierra, so that's a good result for him so far, as we got about half the session left. And Damien Rasmussen completes the top 4 with his teammate Scott Nolan in 5th. Now, that's been an interesting dynamic in the Synergy Sim racing team, because at the beginning of the season, Scott Nolan was clearly the fastest in that HSV, and Rasmussen has shown glimpses of pace, but without consistency. And now all of a sudden, Rasmussen's come on strong as he's up on his PB to Sector 1. All the while, Hobbo's done what Hobbo does best and just lapped at a very consistent rate throughout the entire season. It's almost as if the dynamics completely turned on its head again in that team.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. And we have, going back to your suggestion about Scott Nolan, I mean, before anything with the drop rounds is factored in, his worst result was a pair of 6th places, and he's finished every single race. So that goes to show you the consistency he's had. Damien Rasmussen was a little bit the other direction. He had a pair of 9ths to open the season, and then an 18th. But since then, he's really started to find a bit of a groove. Top 5 finishes for the last 3 races on the trot, 4 out of the last 5 races in the top 5, and he goes to P6 now with a pretty handy lap time. And then Hobbo, as you like to say, Hobbo does what Hobbo does best. He's pretty much been top 4 just about every race, aside from his drop round at Pukekohe, where he was 15th.
We're going to jump on board with Peter Savage now, because he has just set the fastest lap of this session so far, a 1:12.020, and he was challenged in practice by myself, of course, to get into the 11s, and he hasn't quite managed it so far. So we're going to jump on board on the Sierra, up the back straight, up the hill, as he's 1/10 up on his PB, to see whether or not he can be the first to crack the 11 barrier for this round. Now, this is where the important stuff is. Yep.
He did crack it in practice, but that was, I guess, was the official practice session. It's an unofficial track record, if you want to call it that, with regards to these cars. But the one where it counts is either the qualifying session or the race session. So that's what he'll be aiming at. The one that he did to be just as practice expired was an 11.740. So that's his, well, I guess you can call his PB, and he's had a moment.
Put it in the wall.
That's the same thing that he did on his first flying lap that he aborted. So again, you keep saying it. He does not like that last. It's turn 12. We say turn 12 because turn 13 is the little kink just coming the next corner along. You really don't even notice it's there. Much like turn 5 at Phillip Island before you get to Siberia, you really don't even notice it's there. You just sort of point the car in the direction you want it to go, and it goes that way. But he's having a lot of problems with turn 12. That's twice in this session.
Yeah, he's just trying to bring the power up a little too hard on the exit of that apron, using all the concrete there, and it's just spinning him around. We just had another look at that on replay, and you could see that was what the mistake was. As we come to the tail end of this session, he's still in the box seat with quite a margin. We don't quite have it on screen thanks to the ticker doing what the ticker does best and not showing the information that you need.
His margin's just under a half second. It's 0.458 to Luke Rosella, and then another 0.072 back to Brenton Hobson. So that gap between Rosella and Hobson hasn't changed in a couple of minutes now.
And Rosella's just been eclipsed actually for second place, as Hobbo's just set a new personal best to slot into second at 112.3. So still 0.3 away from Peter Savage as we go into the last 2 minutes of qualifying here. We got Hans on screen now. Sorry about that, Nether. Hans on screen.
That's all right.
He's 0.2 up heading into the final sector. So we'll just watch the end of his lap here as there's a yellow flag just ahead of him.
Yeah, that's Mike Coulston, who's around between turns 11 and 12. He's escaped back to the pits. Funny enough, the top 5 at the moment are the same top 5 that exited the practice session not too long ago as well, as Hans was very briefly P6 behind Cracker, and then now goes P5 because Damien Rasmussen was the man who jumped up and started shuffling guys down the order. So now that top 5 from practice has been broken, with Rasmussen with a very impressive 12.261 ahead of Hobbo.
Oh, and Rasmussen almost tips it over. That's
a massive moment for Rasmussen.
And he's going to get out on track pretty quickly if he wants another lap
He
here.
won't get around.
No.
He's not going to get around.
So
no, he's done. He'll have to sit.
That's his session over. Oh, he's trying. He's going to try and get out, but he's not going to have enough time.
Correct. No time left on the clock.
So now it's down to Hobbo, Rosella, and Brunswick to see if they can eclipse Rasmussen for second place. All the while, Peter Savage is looking to break into the 11s in qualifying. Who else are we looking through the grid to maybe improve on their position? I'm a little disappointed in Lion Mitch, actually. We'll see if we can find him on track. He's just about to come through the final sector. Down in 8th at the moment.
8th. Yeah, so his time was about what did he have in practice? It's a 12.3 in practice, and he's done a 13 flat. So he's well away from what he achieved in the practice session. And he's going to be one of the last guys to get another lap. Looks like Hans is going to get another lap. He goes through. Rosella's going to get another lap. Who's the next men coming through the final couple of corners? Ooh. There's a nice little train of them. Who's going to be the next men to get laps?
So Hobbo's up on his lap. We've got him on screen.
He's going to miss out. Bulger's going to miss out. Bulger's done the same thing Pete Savage has done at the final corner, so he's done. Next man to the line's Will Devonish in the Mercedes-Benz. And he's down in P12 on a 13.4. And what does he do?
Hobbo hasn't improved. Nah, Will's been struggling in that Mercedes here. Hobbo doesn't improve on his last lap, so he's done. We got Wayne Spencer.
Wayne Spencer's the next man to the line, and he has improved a little on his PB, but not on his position on track. Next place man is Glenn Miles, across the line. An improvement, big improvement actually, but not a positional improvement. And then Dane Liccardo behind him.
That was Luke Joyner who just came through. And then here's Lime Mitch. Let's see if he improves. Didn't catch his time. There's Peter Savage. Did he get the 11?
Pete Savage has got a 12 flat.
Oh, 11.959. There you go.
Not as fast as practice, but still he has adhered to your challenge here.
I am very proud. And that's good because I also set a challenge for Hans to get a 12 rather, and I think he got that one. And
And there was an improvement late from Nolan there as well by 0.3 of a second, but not enough to jump up positions. He only missed out on getting past Cracker by about a 0.5.
yeah, so very, very close there. So it's going to be Peter Savage, GT3 Sprint Series champion from last night, taking us away from the grid on pole from Damien Rasmussen and Brenton Hobson, two of the Synergy Sim Racing trio. Then Luke Rosella and Hans Brunswick, I think, as the server resets, and I lose all that information.
Yeah, Savage from Rasmussen, Hobbo and Rosella, Lime Mitch and Brunswick, Cracker and Nolan, Wayne Spencer, and Turmo getting into the top 10. Guys on the fringes of the top 10 that didn't get in. We talked about Will Devonish having some struggles. So he's going to start P12. Brock Harvey's going to start P13. And another one of the strugglers, Steve Bulger, but we did expect that the BMW is going to be a little bit down in the power stakes tonight, and he's going to start 17th.
Wow, that's going to be well away, and it kind of shows the difficulties of choosing a car with specific races in mind, and then when you have not those races, when you are running on the other end of the field where you've got a handling based car at a horsepower track, you are kind of thrown into the wolves here. It's going to be a very long night for the BMWs and the Mercedes to get through something that's going to be slightly useful for them tonight.
Yeah, not wrong there. And this is something that, I mean, if I go back to the local state racing with improved production, whenever we come to Sandown, we always see the big V8s up the front. They just continue to dominate. And I mean, some of the other cars you've seen improve production, like your RX-7s, which are an extremely popular car, they're very, very good at Sandown, but in their class, they're no match for the guys that are in a dead straightaway drag down the main straights. The V8s just leave them for dust, and they've got no real way to claw that power deficit back at any of the corners, because as much as the V8s are going to be on the brakes a little bit more to make sure they can get through the corner, and the Mazda a little bit deeper into the braking zone and getting around the corner, the deficit is just too large to overcome.
Yeah, I on that note, let's revisit our point standings, just because we've got that handy here. Point standings at the moment, we've got, as we made mention of, Will Devonish 1 point ahead of Brenton Hobson with 2 rounds left after tonight, and both Hobbo and Devonish burning their drop round, remember, because both of them have had DNFs. What sort of permutations are we looking at with the next 3 rounds of the series? If Devonish has a shocker tonight, where does that leave him as we head to what we've got next? Oran Park and
Eastern Creek and Oran Park are the
Creek.
next 2 rounds. Yeah, so Eastern Creek or Sydney Motorsport Park, again, you've got the big long front straightaway where, you expect the VLs and the VKs to sort of, nick off a little bit. But the rest of the circuit is extremely sort of medium speed corner to low speed corner, and it flows quite well. So a handling car is going to have a little bit more to say, especially around the back part of the circuit. And there's a lot of elevation change there as well. Don't forget, so change of direction, braking into some of the slow speed corners. There's the flip-flop chicane on the way to the final corner as well. So that's going to be, I think, something where the handling cars start to maybe claw a little bit back. Oran Park, again, will be a bit of a different one as well. There's the tight infield section with the continual, left-handers that come up and over the bridge. And then there's the front straightaway, and then even the elevation change that runs down to the final corner, I actually think is probably going to favour the V8s more than it will favour the handling car. So I think the Oran Park round is going to be a bit of a flip of the coin as to who comes out on top. So I don't know. Where do you think this plays for Will? What's the Mercedes strength versus the likes of Hobbo's VL?
Well, the Mercedes strength that we've seen all season has been its mid and low speed cornering. It is easily the most nimble car out there by a long way. So at Winton and at Barbagallo especially, it was running rings around people, and it was very difficult for the VLs in particular to keep up. In fact, it was an absolutely Herculean defensive drive from Nolan and Devonish, and Nolan and Hobson to keep Devonish behind through the course of that Barbagallo race. The VL is the true all-rounder of the series, I think. It's not necessarily had the best pace of any of the tracks, but it does everything very nicely. So it's been able to put in those consistent results time in and time out. So I would hesitate to say that the VL is not going to be strong at either Oran Park or at Eastern Creek, but especially Eastern Creek, I think the Mercedes for Devonish is going to be a force to be reckoned with. It's just going to be a matter of, can he not lose enough tonight to be in the mix to use that pace come Eastern Creek and come Oran Park. And of course, we've got Brock here as well. I just want to quiz Brock very quickly. Brock, is the Mount Panorama round part of the championship at all? If Brock can hear us, if Brock's going to respond to us.
What is he up to at the minute? He must have just put down the headset for a second, I think.
Classic Brock. We'll just do a bit of Googlerooning, not Googlerooning, just a bit of research to see where that sits. But of course, if we end up at Bathurst, then all bets are off, because there's not really too much that a handling-based car can do with those long straights to challenge for it.
No, and then across the top of the mountain, it's all about the flow, isn't it? There's
That's
really
true,
no
yeah.
sort of handling away about it. The flow for most of that part, with the exception of, sort of the S's and the dipper, that's the only real spot where you need a car that can sort of stop and turn on point. Across the top of the mountain, for the most part, you're turning left, and it's all going to be about throttle modulation and hitting those apexes and staying on the racing line, because it's essentially a one-track groove. So if the VL is been a bit of the all-rounder of the series, then I think over the top of the mountain, if it can hold its own, then it might be a no contest down the straights. I think it might just disappear off into the distance. But coming back to the point about Will Devonish, I think where he's starting tonight, it's all going to be about damage limitation. As you said, he's burned his drop round already through that DNF. Hobbo's drop round has come around from his 15th place at Pukekohe, which he did get some points for scoring in that round. So even if he had a worse round, he would, between now and the end of the season, he would inherit a total of 13 more points to his championship. Whereas if Will has another DNF, he essentially gets none.
Yeah, so it really means that Will's going to be scraping for something at this stage, because tonight it really looks like it's going to be difficult. It looks like we're restarting the warm-up session for some reason. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I've just been given a message from Rody just saying the driver's briefing was going to be after quali, and it was going to be a slightly longer one. So I think the 6-minute warm-up session has just been extended to cover that, and there's been an extra driver arrive in the server as well. So I think with a couple of guys actually departing between warm-up and the race, we might have to just run a reset of the grid just to put everybody in correct order.
Cool. Well, in the meantime, then, we can talk a little bit more about the happenings around AMS Oz. Oh, and that's Brock Harvey returning to us. Thank you very much for that little microphone grab there, Brock. We had a question for you, and you weren't around, so we'll ask that question now.
Sorry, it's putting the kids to bed.
Oh, cute. The Bathurst Enduro, is that a championship round for these cars, or is it a non-championship event?
Non-championship event, that one. So go out and go as fast as you can go.
Sweet. So that does change things a little bit, looking at the end of the season then, because it means that it's a much less of a concern for Will not having to worry about the straight line speed of the Mercedes in the final round.
Yeah, when we look at this now, then coming back to the point from before, this really now does become a damage limitation round, 100% damage limitation round for Will Devonish. I think a top 10 finish, he'd probably walk away tonight and be relatively happy with it. He'd be even happier if people like Pete Savage can finish in front of Brenton Hobson. And even if a couple of Hobbo's teammates potentially can get up there and be some championship disruptors as well, he would probably feel a bit happier knowing that he's done his best to minimise the points deficit. And I dare say, barring a disaster, he is going to come out of tonight with a deficit and a target to chase it's just going to be how big is that deficit heading into SMP.
Yeah, and you made a really, really good point there about people, other teams in the mix, other drivers in the mix. The Synergy Sim Racing guys, Hobbo and Nolan, and Rasmussen to that effect as well. When they are on song and when their car is the main one to beat, they have the luxury of having 3 drivers that they know are going to be competent and at the head of the field for the entire race to really put the screws in to Devonish. But on the other hand, when it's a race that more suits Will's car, when it's a more tight and twisty circuit, Devonish doesn't really have that. Even when Devonish has been the car to beat, the Synergy Sim Racing guys have been there in his bumper every single time, and it's meant that even when Devonish almost slapped the field at Winton, the next 3 cars or 2 cars were the Synergy Sim Racing cars. So he hasn't really been able to take too many points away when he's had the ascendancy. So it's a bit of a mixed bag for Will in that respect. But yeah, with tonight's definitely going to be a difficult night for him, and then with the next 2 upcoming rounds, he's got to hope that some of those other drivers, the Hans Brunswicks, the Luke Rosellas, the Peter Savages, the Liam Mitches, get in the mix and give him a hand.
Yeah, and let's have a look at some of those guys as well. You start talking about people like Hans Brunswick and Luke Rosella and that. They do have the potential to be some of these championship disruptors. In terms of Luke Rosella, he's a bit further down the order relative to some of these other guys, but he's still picked up a nice little stack of points since he came into the series. I'm actually just looking down to series now. He's 28th on the standings with 19 points, but he's only done the last 2 rounds at Lakeside and Hidden Valley. But he's in position now to help, the cause of some of these people like Will Devonish. He was also in a position to help the cause of his teammate, Hans Brunswick, in the Volvo, because if you pair some of these guys off, Brunswick and Wayne Spencer, 6th and 7th, there's only 6 points between those guys. Both of them have got drop rounds allocated, a worse of 16th for Hans and a worse finish of 12th for Spencer. So not much in that in terms of drop rounds and drop points. Then you get people like Lime Mitch and Damien Rasmussen, another pair of guys who are only separated by a point, much like Devonish and Hobbo, sitting in 4th and 5th coming into tonight as well. And both of them sort of being up the pointy end. This time around, Lime Mitch having been outpaced by Damien Rasmussen in qualifying. So that's a strike going the other way in that little battle. The man chasing the gentleman ahead is actually in front for this particular round. And then you've got Bulger and Brock Harvey, who are actually tied for 8th at the moment, with Ozrob, who's not present tonight from what I can see. Yeah, it looks like he's not on the list anywhere. He's only 6 points back of those 2 guys that are tied. So what are we doing? I'm assuming in a tie situation, we're going to go to a count back on, best race finishes, but and that's even factoring in a drop round that they're tied as well.
Are they tied both on normal points and on the drop round points?
So
would be
on drop round points. No, on drop round points, they're currently tied.
Yeah. That's the graphic we've got on the screen at the moment. Yep.
The only reason that Steve Bulger has a drop round is through a non-start at Adelaide, whereas Brock's drop round has come from a 14th place finish at Lakeside. So that's the only real thing there. I'm a bit surprised that the drop round's actually counting as a non-start. I would have thought you would have had to have started the round for it to be, or a race for it to be classified as a drop, but I'm not sort of familiar with what's going on the backside. But let's just say that that is actually accurate. If the season ended today, the man who was currently in P8 corrected is Steve Bulger, because he has a podium finish of 2nd place, whereas Brock's best finish is 4th.
Oh, so, one position in it.
Or 2 positions in that one in terms of, where people would stand. So Brock would need if they were tied at the end of it, Brock would need a win or 2 second place finishes to outrank Steve Bulger in that tie. So with, tonight and 2 rounds to go, there is still a lot to play for that. And let's not forget, a lot of the guys that are not on the points graphic each night are still quite close as well. So you got Matt Cecil and Adam Kerrison. They're locked, I won't say locked together, but they're pretty close together. 4 points between them. Luke Joyner, who was and Termo are 5 points apart as well. So too Benjamin Rhodes and John McDonald. Cam Rutledge is only 8 points in arrears of John McDonald. Lewis Wedding not here tonight, just ahead of Brendan Ross. Again, not here tonight, just ahead of Brian Walsh. Again, not here tonight. So some of those guys that are not here tonight are going to be dropping a few points, but they're also going to still remain locked together as well.
Yeah, it's going to really incentivize these guys later on in the championship if they do appear for the last few rounds to get maybe scrape a few points ahead of those they're immediately against. Yeah, because you made mention Cam Rutledge, Lewis Wedding, Brendan Ross, Brian Walsh, Glenn Miles. They're all very tightly packed there in the mid-pack. And even John McDonald just a few points ahead. He's within striking distance if one of these guys in that mid-pack have a good race, which is equally is important for the championship as having a bad one.
Yeah, precisely. And the one part that is the hardest bit for us to fathom out is if any of the drivers that have currently got their worst result marked as a drop have a worse result than what they've already dropped, how that affects their championship standings. So that's something that's calculated ongoing. It's not your worst round as it stands as of right now. It's always reviewed after every round. So, Will's probably the lucky one, I guess, that he's got a DNF to drop. But I mean, if he has another DNF, he's going to be really, really challenged to fight his way back to the top of this order. He cannot afford a non-finish again.
Yeah, and as we come up to the main race, it's going to be a bit of a... as I'm just trying to sort out... There we go, that's what I want to see. As we see the cars coming onto the grid. It's going to be a challenging night for Will, and he's definitely got to hope that he doesn't get another excessively poor result. Remember, he was started well down the order at Simmons Plains, which is another track that was seen to favour those with a bit bigger engine, 2 very long straights in that one. But he came through the field there by virtue of being clean and not making mistakes. So hopefully for him tonight, he can do the same, because it would be a bit of a shame for him to miss out on another very close run championship right at the very end of it, as we saw last night in the GT3 series.
Just getting ready to start the formation lap. Everyone's on the grid by the looks of things. Pete Savage is going to lead the field on the formation lap. Very nice Shell Sierra, paying tribute to the Dick Johnson racing era of the late 80s. And he's on the front row with Damien Rasmussen. Go on, Flood, I cut you off.
Oh, no, it's okay. I cut myself off. Keep going.
Luke Rosella is just actually ahead of Brenton Hobson on track, but Hobbo has the honour of being in 3rd position on row 2 from Luke Rosella's Volvo 240. Lion Mitch had a bit of a late charge, gets himself up to P5 to start tonight's race. Hans Brunswick P6, so the Volvo's on rows 2 and 3. Cracker, who showed some pretty impressive pace in the latter stages of practice, he's taken his Sierra up to 7th. Scott Nolan makes it a trio of Synergy Sim racing cars well and truly entrenched in the top 10. Another Commodore of Wayne Spencer is going to share row 5 with Termo's play on. I like to call this a bit of tongue-in-cheek because the Kelly Mustang, which is a Ford, is liveried like that, and Termo's gone and reversed that onto a Holden. So I think that's what we'd like to call a bit of a modern take on retro liveries, if that is Termo.
Yep.
That's how you do it. Scott Murrell and Will Devonish on row 6, so that's 11 and 12. So Will's got a little bit of work to do ahead of some very fast Commodores. The second of the MHRT VKs is Brock Harvey in 13th. From Luke Joyner, another VK Commodore in 14th. Then Dane Liccardo, P15. Steve Bulger, the BMW, in 16th. Rhodey has taken the number 10 Trackstar liveried Sierra up to 17th. Matt Cecil, the Nissan, in 18th. And to round it all out, Adam Kerrison's Volvo in 19th. Mike Coulston, the BMW, in 20th. Glenn Miles, 21st in the Nissan. And Cam Rutledge, 22nd in the Sierra.
As the leaders come onto the main straight, I was just going to say for Peter Savage, that car is actually liveried as if it was the Charles Leclerc number 3 Ferrari. That's, I think, what the homage is on the side there. So we'll just see if we can get a bit of a closer look. I'm working out the cameras. There we go. A bit of a weird one there. So a nice little cursed Ferrari livery on the Sierra as the rear of the field starts to come up. The start line for Sandown is a long way down the main straight, whereas the finish line is all the way back alongside the pit. So it's a very sort of weird little system there as the last people tag on. But it will be...
This is the V8 starting line here. It's a lot further back in real life, but you're right. Here we go.
50 minutes of Sandown for round 9 of the ATCC series on Automobilista Australia, and we're away, and it's Brenton I'll try that again. Damien Rasmussen with a cracking start, and he's absolutely got that HSV off the line, and he's walked it into first place ahead of Peter Savage, and then Luke Rosella and Brenton Hobson side by side for 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, Rasmussen converted absolutely beautifully from the front row. Zero wheel spin, just about got it fired exactly the way that he wanted to. Already a couple of guys starting to trip over each other just through the turn 2-3 chicane. They were 3 wide for one point, but they've all settled down now. Mike Coulston's just dropped to the rear of the field, and that might not be a bad move just to see what plays out in front on this opening lap, because there's a few guys already starting to get a bit wild and woolly on the run up to turn 6. Yeah,
it was Formula 3 stuff down the back straight as Brenton Hobson closed off Lime Mitch and Luke Rosella from trying to get the draft as they filed down the hill.
There's a wild road, he's nearly in the fence. He sent it down the inside at turn 6. He's taken out one of the ad boards, but he was very close to going into the turn 6 fence.
Is that roadie that you said there?
Correct.
Well, we might have to cut back on that a bit later on, because it's still very willing stuff in the mid-pack here. And I think I just saw Hans Brunswick get it all out of shape on the final corner. But let's have a look at Lime Mitch now. He's right in the wheel tracks of Brenton Hobson coming down the main straight. So you're going to have a chance to pull out into turn 1. He pulls out to the inside. Last of the late breakers here. And he's going to run side by side. Not quite up far enough. And Hobbo closes the door. So they stay 4th and 5th. As I think it was Wayne Spencer in the background there, got a bit wide, and someone's well off in the weeds down at turn 1, and it is Rhodey.
Yep, that is Rhodey. Yeah, he's had a bit of a shocking opening lap, Rhodey. Now, behind the Lime Mitch and Brenton Hobson battle, there was a change for position. Cracker got the job done on Scott Nolan on the run down the front straightaway too, and was well and truly clear. Went the long way around as well, around the outside at turn 1, did pretty well. And then Wayne Spencer was getting it's a bit feisty with Turmo a bit further back as well. So some of the Commodores already starting to change positions, but...
Oh, someone's around! Hobson's around!
Hobson's around! Brunswick's around! There's all sorts of carnage on the run to Dandenong Road.
Oh, madness here, madness. Let's see if we can catch what happened there as I'm trying to sort out all the little buttons. So we've got Hobson here coming into turn 6, and...
Oh, Hobbo lost it. Hobbo lost it at turn 6, and he was in the middle of the road. Lime Mitch took evasive action, so he was the benefactor out of that one. Brunswick had nowhere to go as Hobson was coming back across the road, and then Brunswick speared across the track, taking out Krakow, sandwiched into Nolan, and they were very lucky not to collect anybody else. So there was that was Hobson and then Cam Rutledge, I think, behind them has gone off in sympathy. Rhodey ran into the back of Hobson as well, so there's a few damaged race cars out of that one.
And it looks
we got a safety car.
Yeah, and understandably too, because that was an absolutely frantic accident there. And a mistake from Hobson, something that we never really see, has seen him cause this massive accident. And yeah, Hans just really had nowhere to go in the middle of that.
Yeah, Hobson's car, just as he was spinning, came the wrong way. So Lime Mitch guessed the right direction, went to Hobson's left, just snuck through. And then Brunswick's tried to do the same thing, and Hobson's car's just come rolling back across the track in front of him with zero opportunity to go. And then he's pinballed back across the other side of the road into Cracker, who had Nolan right on his hammer as well. So Nolan, an innocent victim in that one. Hans, an innocent victim by just couldn't guess the right direction. And then behind them, Rhodey just getting it all tangled up in the braking coming down the hill, and Cam Rutledge sort of just spinning in sympathy. So no damage for Rutledge. But there's at least 5 cars with some damage out of that one. But you're right, very, very rare mistake from Hobson, something we do not see. And what Rasmussen's just run into the back of the safety car at Dandenong Road as it's checked up. Savage nearly got into the back of him as well. So I think they just need to settle down a bit, just give themselves a little bit more space.
Yeah, and we've got Brian Walsh in the YouTube chat saying this is the first safety car of the season, which is correct. was something I was just about to mention. So I think we're not really sure what the safety car procedure is going to be, whether or not it goes in straight away now that the incident is cleared, or whether it will be 2 or 3 laps. Or the speed that it's going at the moment, it's quite a crawl. So yeah, it's something that we haven't encountered yet this season, and whether or not it causes further issues is I think we've got Peter Savage pulling off to the inside here. What's going on there?
I'm not sure. Has he been told to stay behind another car? That's what I'm trying to see what's going on. Unless he's had some trouble. Let me just see if I can cycle up to see where he's being told to stay, because he was second on the road. Now, we've got a couple of pit stop takers here. So Bulger has come in. Scott Nolan's come in, understandably, for some damage repair. Brunswick has stayed out. Rhodey has stayed out. Hobson has stayed out. Hobson down in 15th. I'm just trying to cycle up to see what's happened to Pete Savage here. Now, he has, unless we've got a timing glitch that is causing some dramas here.
Oh, it looks like he's coming back
here we
up.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pete Savage has been told to stay behind Rasmussen, so maybe he just had a little bit of a drama, or we had a little bit of a timing glitch for a minute, so his heart would have skipped a 1 or 2 beats there, much like last night.
Well, he did mention in practice that he actually yanked his wheel off by accident coming through one of the corners, so it's possible that he's had a similar sort of issue and has had to do some running repairs down the main straight. So luckily it's been under safety car, otherwise he could have lost it at a much more high speed corner of the track.
And you're right about it being the first safety car of the season. That's one thing we haven't seen a lot of this year, not just in the ATCC series, but also a lot of the AMS Oz series have not seen very many safety cars this year. I can think of maybe 1 or 2 in the supercars, which there was one definitely at Pukekohe, and I think there may have been one other since. And I know we had a couple at the Bathurst round for GT3s, but aside from that, not very much else. One of the MHRT cars is facing backwards coming out of Dandenong Road. Who was that?
Is that Brock Harvey?
No, it's Murrell.
Scott Murrell. Let's have a quick look, see what's happened here with Murrell. So he's come out of Dandenong Road, and Brock's come to a stop, and then it looks like Joyner's
got tagged by Joyner.
Yeah. So
Brunswick, stop, go penalty.
Ooh.
What's he done there? As a bit of concertinaing effect, there's something gone wrong with Hans Brunswick. That's a weird one.
Let's see if we can have a look. We'll have a scroll back and see what's happened. It's because he's passed it looks like he's passed Rhodey under the safety car or something. He might have been given some bad instructions because it's given him a drive-through here. Not sure. Yeah, one of the joys of Automobilista Australia, everyone, is I think, are we back to green? And we've completely missed that we've gone back to green. Congratulations, us. Well done. So Rasmussen seems to have got a good restart, but he's going to be under the hammer from Peter Savage here now as we go into turn 6. Hold your breath moment for the people in the Sierras as it's Rasmussen, Savage, Lion Mitch, and then Luke Rosella. So those positions have changed there. Lion Mitch has actually got the move done on Luke Rosella in the time that we were away. And then it's going to be Cracker Wayne Spencer, who's up 3, and then Turmo. And then we've got the 2 MHRT cars coming into the final sector of the track, almost side by side. Scott Murrell and Brock Harvey there. Jump on board with Brock and watch him come down this main straight underneath the rear wing of his teammate. A little bit of a gap. Actually, we'll jump off Brock Harvey because there's more up front, if I can work out my buttons. So did you get any information on what happened there with Hans Nether?
Yes, the live stewards actually removed the penalty for Hans Brunswick. It was actually Rhodey who checked up and Hans shot past him. So when we went to green flag, Hans was out of position. So not Hans's fault. Rhodey's copped that one on the chin and the penalty's been removed.
Oh, that's good to hear. So Hans, he's going to be on a recovery drive anyway at his position, but at least he won't have a drive-through penalty to deal with as well.
Now, after all this is settled down, before we get too far, so Hobson's come out in P11 after all of that on a recovery drive as well. Now, Will Devonish was actually ahead of Hobbo, I think, after the safety car was called, but he's dropped back to 13th here. So depending on what sort of damage Hobson is carrying, this might not be a bad result for Will Devonish, but he's got a long way to go here in terms of just maintaining the status quo. He's still got 40 minutes on the clock. But what's going to happen at the back end of this race and how badly the damage affects some of these guys that didn't stop to repair anything. Maybe some of them only got away with minor bingles.
Yeah, fingers crossed for those guys. But we did see the ones who did stop. They got that stop done under safety car, which has worked out nicely for them. But it's still a long way to go if they'd want to get to the end on just that stop. So we've got Cracker checking up in turn 1. He's got both MHRT Commodores and the Ned Mustang Commodore behind him coming through that tighter section of track. But watch here as we go on board from the rear of the Sierra. That Sierra is just going to leave behind the battling pack as we come up the hill down the back straight. Look at them get smaller in the distance for Cracker.
You did realise what you said there was complete sacrilege. You said Mustang Commodore.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's what it is. It's the Ned Mustang on a Commodore.
Oh, Rasmussen's around. Race leader is off at turn 6 and 7. So that gives the lead to Pete Savage. So he's done the same thing that looks like what Brenton Hobson may have done coming down the hill.
So we're just scrolling back here to have a look. Rasmussen, got two wheels over the curb, and that was it. It sent him around.
Oh, hang on a minute. I'm actually just going to have a bit of a look here just to see. I'm wondering, Pete Savage was pretty close, just making sure there was no contact. And no contact. He's done exactly the same thing as Hobson did.
So that's two of the Synergy Sim racing cars getting it all wrong over turn 6 by just running the curb a little too much, as we got a few more cars battling further back. Will Devonish just ahead of, is that Scott Nolan already on a recovery drive back into 14th, 15th? It is too, so Nolan's done very well for himself to get back there. But all three Synergy Sim racing cars affected here, and this is always, there's a little touch between Devonish and Hans. I was about to say, this is a bit of a callback to the last time we were at Sandown in TCAC, wherein we had the all-wheel drive series and all three Synergy Sim racing cars ran into trouble there as well.
Maybe it's a bogey track for them of some nature. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I mean, the turn 6 to 9 complex is very complicated, sure, but it shouldn't be something that trips them up every single race meeting that they come out.
No, and it's the most difficult part of this course is turn 6. If you get your braking properly sorted for turn 6, you can effectively run it almost down the hill in a straight line. You can turn 7 and 8 into basically a straight, almost like straight lining the chicane if you get your lines right. And then all you got to do is worry about when you got to get on the anchors for turn 9 at Dandenong Road.
Yeah, but it's a matter of getting that spot right and getting it right every single time. We're 10 minutes, 12 minutes into the race as we're watching
race
again.
Control issued a penalty for Adam Kerrison. Now he's just exited pit lane, so that'll be a speeding infringement for Adam Kerrison. Yeah, he's going to have to do another tour of the lane.
That's a real shame for Kerrison, who's looking very nice in that Shell-inspired Volvo, as we're again on board with Cracker heading up to turn 6. So you can see the Sierra takes a much earlier braking point there, of course, because the Sierra has no brakes or handling, but he gets very nicely smooth through that section. And with Spencer going off a little bit ahead of him, he might actually do a bit to gain on the HSV ahead, but he has still got the pair of MHRT Commodores behind him. This is a great run from Cracker. I think so far this is the highest run from Cracker in that Sierra that we've seen since the beginning of the series.
Yeah, the beginning of the series, he opened up with a 7th place at Calder Park, but then he had that win at Simmons Plains, which a lot of guys are forgetting about as well. I mean, for most part, other than that, he's been just outside the top 10 on a few occasions. The next best result after that was a 9th 2 rounds ago at Lakeside, but he seems to be gelling pretty well with this track at the moment. He's got the legs on Scott Murrell's VK coming up the back straight, but Murrell's found a little bit of a turn of pace as well. Now he gets a really good exit off at turn 4, but just loses a little bit here in this run up the back straight. So he needs to stay really close to Cracker coming off of turn 4, and then he might be in position for a shot at turn 9, but just again a little bit too far back. But what he loses out on the back straight, he's making up through the section down here through Dandenong Road and under braking for the corners. Look how much he closes up.
Yeah, we were just on board with Scott Murrell there, and you could see how much he gains through the back section. Missed a gear, it sounded like, there coming off the curb. but again, right onto the tail. But we'll stick with this shot because you'll see as they come onto the main straight, even despite Cracker getting a little bit of wheel spin, it's almost immediate how quickly that Sierra just pulls car lengths on the cars behind. So yeah, that gap, it must be disheartening if you're in one of the Commodores, as in the rearview mirror, if you can just have a peek, there's action behind between Brock Harvey and Termo, and they've almost got, I think that's one of the Synergy Sim racing cars, that's Brenton Hobson for company.
Yeah, so Hobbo just inside the top 10, and then his teammate Damian Rasmussen, who did lead the race for a little bit, is the last man inside the 10. Now, Hobbo hasn't been able to find a way past Termo for the last 2 or 3 laps. That's the same story for Termo on Brock Harvey. So these two just sort of, or three, just sort of locked together for the moment in their own private battle. The other battle that's brewing at the moment is Cracker has started to catch Wayne Spencer. Wayne was a 14 flat last time around. Cracker was a 13.9, Murrell a 13.8. And Murrell's just lost a little bit of touch for Cracker on this lap.
Oh, big dive from Hobbo through turn 9. We'll jump back onto that because they're running side by side, Hobbo and Termo.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to get the moves made and get it to stick because Termo's fought it all the way back. And there's a little bit of a kink in this chicane here that you can take, but Hobbo's positioned himself beautifully for the run through 12. And now he secures 8th place over Termo, but it's not over yet. Termo might have another go. They're bump drafting down the main straight, and Hobbo's taken the defensive approach. He's going to force Termo the long way around, though.
And we're watching now on board with Termo. Termo goes deep under brakes. Whereabouts they come out? They're side by side still through turns 1. Termo's got the inside line now as we come through turns 2 and 3. Misses the curb on the first one, hits it very aggressively. Hobbo's going to try and dive through turn 4. They're still side by side as they come out of the corner. Oh,
Hobbo's gone!
Again.
Lit it up. Just got too greedy on the loud pedal, and he's nosed into the fence, so he's going to lose a spot to Joyner, a spot to Nolan, a spot to Brunswick.
So we'll ride on board with Hobson through that section here on replay. So you can see he's gotten the inside line there, and he nicks the curb, and that's enough to send him around. So that's what it was there. It was just a little bit of curb that was enough to send him around on the inside there. So he's now down in 13th place after what's been a torrid first 20 minutes for Hobbo here.
And we did warn about that early on in the night too, that those curbs at turns 2 and 3 you're going to get up on 2 wheels, but you didn't want to nick the curb at turn 4 because not only does it delay you getting on the power to get up the back straight, which is what you need to get it down as quickly as possible. He probably just didn't realise he'd taken a little bit of that curb. The balance of the car had been upset, went to get the accelerator down at the usual point, and the car wasn't balanced, and around it went.
We're going to jump into the battle for 5th and 4th.
We might get it. Oh, sorry, Hobbo might get a 2-for-1 special here, and he does. He got a 2-for-1 special on Brunswick and Joyner as they ran 3 wide down into turn 1. That was a ballsy move.
Okay, we'll have a quick replay look at that, because that one sounds like a bit of a special move here. So yeah, side by side down the main straight, Hobbo jumps to the inside and gets it done. Well done on Brenton Hobson there. So he's now
Joyner
back into 11th.
Well,
what was that, sorry?
Joyner just fought it back for a little bit after that move was done as well, but Hobbo's finally managed to secure it when they got to turn 3. But now he's got his teammate of Scott Nolan as the next man ahead. A couple of seconds up the road.
So we'll leave that for now, and we'll go back to the battle for 4th and 5th. So we're on board here with Cracker again in the Sierra, and we're looking at the rear of Wayne Spencer's HSV. So last lap around, they were running side by side down to turn 1. It's a bit more of a gap this time, but we'll stay on board with Cracker for this lap and see how the Sierra in Cracker's hands differs to Wayne Spencer's HSV. So they're just coming up as well on Adam Kerrison. That's the next car ahead. Kerrison, remember, with that early pit stop is a lap down and had a penalty as well. So he sidesteps and let these guys go through. And Cracker's got a great run off of turn 4 here. So we're coming up the back straight, and look at how quickly the Sierra reels in the HSV. Spencer does a great job to just ease over and shut the door on Cracker. And that's actually upset.
Yeah, that was very close. He thought about a move to the inside, had to get back to the outside to take the line, and he missed his braking marker there. Very lucky that he wiped off enough speed to get back into line and not really have too much trouble coming down the hill towards Dandenong Road there.
And this is the all-important exit down the main straight. And Spencer's been getting great exits there time and time again. So it's not looking, he's not making it easy for Cracker, even though, and we've got some pit callers in the background as well. Even though Cracker's got that straight line speed, it's not easy for him to range onto the back of that HSV. Actually, I'm just going to go to the head of the field. Sorry, but we've actually had a change in lead. It's now Lion Mitch from Peter Savage at the lead of the race. So
yeah, that's got to be a mistake. That's got to be a mistake somewhere, because Lion Mitch had a moment across the grass not too long ago. And that move looks like it may have been done before the lap commenced, actually. Pete Savage was behind coming across the start-finish line. So somewhere on the last lap...
Oh, and he's gone around now. He's gone around at Dandenong Road, and he's forced Luke Rosella to take the long way through the gravel trap in avoidance. Oh, very lucky for Rosella, but Savage, again, just another little spin for these guys. And it's just so many problems around the track at the moment. So we're coming down on the replay, and he's just a little wide on entry, and the rears just unseat themselves, and Rosella had to go right off into the gravel to avoid him there. Very lucky for Rosella.
Good situational awareness there by Luke Rosella, just to pick the right opportunity to avoid the spin of the car that was ahead of him. Getting confirmation too, it was a very scruffy last sector for Pete Savage, so that's where he lost the position to Lion Mitch.
It was a scrappy last sector, last lap around as well. So Savage, yeah, again with that last sector, we made mention of it in qualifying. It's where all the corners are, all the difficult corners, and the Sierra, it really does like to plow. So very difficult car to get the handle on, and certainly something very different to the Bentley Continental GT3 he was driving last night.
Pit stop sequences are underway, so Turmo has been and gone. Scott Murrell just leaving the lane now. So these are green flag
again,
stops.
I'm going to interrupt you again, because Savage has done exactly the same thing, and he's gone around again. Exactly the same thing.
He's got to be careful. Oh, he reversed while Glenn Miles was in behind him as well. So that could have been disastrous. So he now drops to 4th place. So it's not the last couple of corners that he was having the trouble with now as he was in qualifying. It's a lot earlier than that. It's down at the bottom end of the course at Dandenong Road.
Must be suffering some rear tyre problems, as I've got eyes on Brock Harvey coming into the pits. He did say that he ran a series of laps in practice, 19 laps in practice in a row, so he should have a bit of a handle on those rear tyres. But yeah, 3 laps in a row, he's locked them up coming into Dandenong Road, so might be struggling a little bit for just rear grip. And some handling issues in that Sierra.
Everything's just sort of settled down for a little bit now. There's a couple of guys that have obviously been on a green flag stop that are getting lapped. So Murrell's just been passed by Lion Mitch, and the next man for him is Turmo. So with Murrell and Turmo having stopped, they find themselves in 18th and 19th, with the latter being a lap, or the former being a lap down. And just wanted to see what our race leader does if he opts to come in for a stop, and he keeps out.
So I'll have a look, see if anyone else comes into the pit lane. Luke Rosella will be the next car. He stays out, and then we've got the pair of
Cracker and Savage are the next ones, and they keep going. So too does Rasmussen, and most of the field at this stage looks like they are staying out. Top 8 definitely have. Hobbo's found his way back to 8th after all that calamity. Brunswick in 9th going through. And yeah, most of the field looks like they're staying out at this particular moment. So only 4 or 5 guys have opted to take the stop, with the 2 cars that did take stops in the yellow flag sequence being Rhodey and Steve Bulger.
We've got a yellow flag at turn 1 for Glenn Miles, who looks like he's looped it on the exit of the first corner to track left. So he's just rejoined the circuit back behind Will Devonish, who now sits in 11th place.
Yeah, Will's moved up to 11th by virtue of Murrell and Turmo having taken their stops. So if the rest of the field does have to stop, it'll be interesting to see what sort of benefit they get by going in early, whether they'll have track position but have worse tyres to fight with at the end of it, or whether Will can sort of stay ahead of these guys. It's a bit crucial for him at the minute. He's got to come up with something a little bit different. He's 3 positions behind Hobbo on the road.
And the first of our pit stop runners is Brock Harvey at the moment, down in 17th place. So that kind of gives you an idea of this sort of spread through the field for these guys at the minute. Brock coming in from 6th place, I think, before the sequence.
Yeah, he was sort of on the back end, 6th or 8th, I think it was from memory. He has come in from, and he's only about 5 or so seconds ahead of Lime Mitch, the race leader. If I have a look on the radio, he was 7th when he came in at the stop.
So, yeah, 7th place down to 17th. So, a loss of around, quite a bit, actually. You know, the realms of a minute, which when the cars are going past you at full speed on the track is not all that nice. But that's the price that you have to pay for the pit stops. And we've seen the Commodores, the VKs particularly, really struggle with tyre life, as we've got, I think that's Damien Rasmussen jumping into the pits.
Now, importantly, Hobbo has stopped. Hobbo stopped the last time around. He's gone down to 17th. He's actually come out behind Brock Harvey. So Brock, now keeping in mind that Brock did make a gain because Hobbo had those couple of moments where he looped the car. So it's no surprise there, but what is surprising is the margin. So in terms of how far ahead Brock Harvey is on Brenton Hobson, it's only about 3.8 seconds. So Hobbo's managed to claw some of that margin back that he lost having the last time he spun.
And we've got more pit callers as well. Wayne Spencer, Damien Rasmussen, Luke Joyner, Hans Brunswick in the pits. We'll just see if we can get a shot to show cars coming back out.
Rasmussen leaving now, so he's going to come on around Rhodey and Cam Rutledge, and they'll both get him before then. Wayne Spencer's about to leave as well. Comes out into some clear air and just ahead of Brock Harvey and Lime Mitch. And Brunswick is going to feed out. Where's he going to feed out? Behind Murrell, but ahead of Rosella.
And that's a lap a difference between Rosella and Brunswick, the two teammates. So we've just got.
So Murrell's made a gain. So Murrell was ahead. Murrell was behind Brunswick when the stops happened. So Murrell's made a net gain here.
Wow, that's a little unexpected considering the.
My maths is right.
Yeah, and that sounds about right as well. I've just gone back to the battle for third between Peter Savage and Cracker because that's just swapped around. So Savage is making his way back through the field, and they've just passed Luke Joyner, who just came out of the pits as well. So these guys should be coming into the pits relatively soon as well. The Sierras have been awful on tyre life. They got a little bit of an update to make them a little better through mid-season. So they should be coming into the pits relatively soon, as we've already crossed the half distance mark for the race. I wonder if that early safety car has actually enabled these guys to maybe stretch it just a little longer to make that last stint a little shorter and a little more comfortable.
Yeah, keeping in mind that it's a time plus 1 lap as well. So coming in slightly after the half distance mark, if you could make it work, it's probably not a bad idea. Now, Savage keeps going. Cracker's coming in. Now, he's got to get down to that 40k speed limit as well. And he does that quite comfortably with some margin to spare. So now Nolan goes through. He's yet to stop. So the top 4, Lime Mitch, Luke Rosella, Pete Savage, Scott Nolan, yet to stop. And Cracker's having to get into his pit bay just as Rutledge is trying to leave. And Devonish keeps going. So with all these pit stops, Devonish finds himself up in P6, but crucially, he's another one that is actually up to P5, but crucially, he is yet to stop. And the next man behind him that he has stopped is actually Steve Bulger, believe it or not. Bulger's found his way up to 8th in all of this, having stopped under the safety car. And he's going to be touch and go with Cracker, and he's actually going to round Cracker up. So that's a big net gain for Bulger, but the real question for him is what's his tyre life going to be like at the back end of this race, given how early he came into pits. Remember, he was in before within 10 minutes.
And we just got Cracker and Damien Rasmussen battling into turn 1. Rasmussen does sweep through, so that's a more effective battle on track. Yep. Now, with regards to Bulger, as we look at the beautiful kaleidoscopic BMW art car livery on that one of my favorite all-time sports car liveries, so it's beautiful to see that one out. I don't think the tyre life is going to be long enough in that BMW, despite the BMW being arguably or easily the best alongside the Merc for its tyre life. It just doesn't... it's not going to hold on for 40 minutes, which is the task that Bulger's going to ask it to do. And especially with the faster guys immediately behind him in the likes of Rasmussen and Cracker, I don't expect him to get the gains that he would be looking for by trying to do that one stop very, very early. Yeah, it would be a bold strategy, but I'm not sure if it will pay off, as we've got both Matt Cecil and Will Devonish in the pits now, so we'll see. Oh, we've got Lime Mitch in the background. You can see he's been spun on the entry to pit lane. Let's have a look.
What's he done there?
As he's side by side with Glenn Miles in the entry, let's have a quick look at the replay. So
We had a bit of a hard time trying to round up Wayne Spencer as well and flash the lights, and he wasn't happy. And he got tagged by Hobson. He got tagged by Brenton Hobson trying to get into pit lane.
So we're just about to see that there, and there it goes. Big hit on the rear of Liam Mitch's skyline. Yeah, a bit of a calamity there.
And that actually impeded Glenn Miles trying to get into pit lane as well. I think that might be reviewed after this. That's I'm wondering whether or not they brought that up at the driver's briefing, whether or not they had to be careful with guys trying to get into pit lane. Definitely unintentional. Lime Mitch had every right to be there, but the problem is you've got to get down to the 40k an hour speed limit, and you've got to get down fast. And probably Hobson a little bit caught out there, I think, just not knowing what direction Lime Mitch was going to go. That all started because Wayne Spencer, who was a lap down, Lime Mitch tried to round him up, and Wayne went pretty defensive, and I think maybe he thought he'd give the line to Lime Mitch to go around the left-hand side, and in fact Lime wanted to go the other way, and he wasn't happy about it, so it was probably already a bit hot under the collar. But that's going to be a talking point after this one's over.
Yeah, well, of course, Spencer was in a battle with Hobson for position as well, so they were engaged in their own thing with Lime Mitch trying to come through. So I think Spencer maybe was trying to be defensive to make sure that not only did Lime not get past, but also more importantly for him, Brenton Hobson. But Lime has come out on track back in the lead of the race, importantly. So he's just got Luke Rosella immediately behind now. That is for position because Luke had made his pit stop just a little earlier. So
Rasmussen's rounded up Cracker as he came out of the pit stop sequence, but which we said was a net gain. But he hasn't been able to shake the Sierra.
Yeah, not yet. That Sierra, of course, does have the advantage of the straight line speed, which is able to keep him in the hunt. So what we'll do now is we'll just hold the camera off at the end of turn 1 here when Lime Mitch gets there. We'll show you the field as they come through. So there's first and second, Lime Mitch and Luke Rosella. Third place is Peter Savage coming through in that Sierra now. Fourth here is Cracker and Brendan Hobson. That's that battle there. Or Damien Rasmussen, rather. There's Steve Bulger in the BMW. Then the Synergy Sim Racing cars of, that's Scott Nolan and Brendan Hobson and Wayne Spencer. There's one of the MHRT Commodores.
That's Harvey.
Yep. There's Termo and Adam Kerrison, many laps down. Rhodey and Glenn Miles. Then here comes Mike Coulston, Scott Murrell, and there's Hans Brunswick, who's had a trying start to his race. There's Will Devonish, well down the order. Luke Joyner comes through now. Then there will be Matt Cecil, who came out of the pits last lap around. And then we've got a big air gap on track. So everyone's kind of condensed into half a lap there.
Now I'm just running through the field just to see and confirm that everybody has indeed stopped. There were a few early stoppers, but for the most part, it looks like everybody has been through the lane. So now this is a matter of the gaps that are present. How quickly can drivers close them up? And what is our podium going to look like in about 16 or 17 minutes from now?
So you would have heard me screaming off in the background. Lime Mitch there hit the curb at turn 1, got it up on 2 wheels and just managed to ride it before the AstroTurf, or the concrete on the exit of turn 1 there, expired. So he went through the grass on the exit of turn 1, and now that's really brought Luke Rosella right up to the tail, as they've got Cam Rutledge to pass as they dive to the inside. Cam does actually a great job to get out of the way, but that's brought Luke Rosella right into the battle, and he's going to wrap around the front, and there's the move.
Oh, hang on, this is not over yet as well, because Lime Mitch wanted to go the other way and Rosella moved across to take a defensive approach, but another lead change in the form of Luke Rosella. So that played out beautifully there, going outside the yellow lines there, just trying to break the toe of Lime Mitch. I'm not sure how that'll be looked at.
Yeah, it's technically outside the track limits there, even though it's tarmac for Luke Rosella. So watching on board from Luke, looking back at Lime Mitch, I think Lime has a right to feel a little aggrieved by the last 5 or so minutes of this race. He's been held up in traffic, spun into pit lane, and then held up again, and that's caused him to lose the lead of the race. So
he
Rosella...
got a track cut on his last lap around as well too, Lime Mitch. He's already got 2 to his name, so he got that in sector 1 somewhere, which I think would have been your yikes moment that you mentioned when you mentioned before. So he's got 1 more, and then he's on a final warning.
Yeah, so he's going to play it a little safe for the second half of the race. It's very easy to get a track cut here as he goes across the curb at turn 6. We just caught it in Luke Rosella's rear view mirror there. He's really struggling with that skyline at the moment.
Now, I'm starting to look at the lap times here, because look who's ranging into view onto back of the top 2.
Yeah, there it is, the red Sierra of Peter Savage, just coming through the tail of shot now.
Get a read on it. Rosella is a 12.8 that time around. Lime Mitch didn't register for me. 12.4 for Pete Savage. Lime Mitch, did he get another track cut?
He got another track
run?
cut, yeah. He went straight across turn 7 curb, yeah. So he's really riding the fine line at the moment.
He's on a final warning now. If the limits are set that the way they usually are, which is normally 3+1, and then you're gone, he's on a final warning. He's got to be ultra careful now for the next 13 and a half minutes. He's got no wiggle room to make any more mistakes, or he'll be doing a drive-through. And if he does, that is going to put him somewhere around the Cracker, Nolan, and Brenton Hobson battle, which is a bit interesting now, because Rasmussen has finally been able to shake the Sierra. I think Cracker's made a mistake or two. Now Nolan's rounded him up. Hobbo's lining up an opportunity. Wayne Spencer's looking at the back of them as well. Steve Bulger's still hanging on, but maybe those tyres are starting to cry enough, because he was P6 a little while ago. He's now dropped to the back group in P9.
So we're on the tail of Cracker Sierra, looking back at Hobbo and Spencer, who are getting much larger in the rearview mirror as we come through down towards Dandenong Road. And Hobbo's actually got a little bit of a run here towards the inside. Tries to go for the crisscross, but again, the Sierra has the ponies in the straight line. It's Battle Pack's really quite energized for 6th, 7th, and 8th. As we've got 12 and a half minutes to go. Wow, that time flies quickly.
It does, and what is flying quickly is Pete Savage. Last time around, 3/10 quicker than Lime Mitch, and a full 6/10 of a second quicker than Luke Rosella.
So Peter Savage is going to be on the tail of the leaders soon. I've just stayed with this shot because Wayne Spencer has tried to dial in a move versus Hobson, but hasn't worked out. So we'll find that battle again for Rosella and Lime Mitch. Or is it just me, or is Mitch actually trying to catching back? Oh, as we've got Glenn Miles in the wall at turn 6.
Yeah, he's doing the right thing though. He's staying. I think he's
actually just escaped,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah, so he was doing the right thing, staying off the line, but it did take away a passing opportunity down at Dandenong Road because of the yellow flag. So lucky Lime Mitch didn't send it down there, or he would have been done.
Yeah,
now,
so there's your top 3.
Now Rasmussen is 4th, and he's pretty much running solo at the moment and not doing the sort of times that he needs to be doing to catch the guys ahead. Savage still continuing to pump in the quick laps. He was pretty much matched Rosella's pace that time around, but Lime Mitch again was 0.2 of a second slower. So I think give it another lap or two, Savage will be in a position to have a lunge, perhaps on Lime Mitch, somewhere around this course. Now the Liccardo round behind them off at turn 4.
Now, the prime spots that Savage will be looking to have a go at is likely going to be turn 1.
Oh, and Liccardo's actually backed it up onto the racing line there. So it caught Cam Rutledge out.
Cam Rutledge out, yeah.
But Damien Rasmussen managed to navigate that through quite nicely, so he hasn't been held up at all.
No, that was lucky for Liccardo too. He probably didn't have the rough idea of where anybody was on track. I mean, when he reversed, there was sort of nobody there, but then Cam came around the corner and sort of was a bit unsighted.
And Liccardo's just gone off again at turn 6 and 7, and he's right ahead of this battle pack that we got our eyes on. Scott Nolan, Cracker, and Brenton Hobson. Dane's got to get out of the way here because he could really affect this battle if he makes a mistake at the wrong time.
Yeah, and ahead of them, looks like Rutledge was just off the road at turn 12 as well, but you're right, Dane Liccardo will have blue flags, and he does have the blue flags, but giving a nice little toe to Cracker, and I think if Dane just stays to the right here, lets these guys through, that'll work out pretty well for them. Still learning his racecraft is Dane Liccardo, and Cracker's managed to get through, but Hobson hasn't.
Yeah, and Dane's caught there. He didn't really know what to do. He didn't get out of the way in time, and that's actually really forced Hobbo to do it the hard way. And this is going to be the same problem for Wayne Spencer as well. So Wayne's really been stuck there, and it's compromised his exit quite a lot. So we'll jump back onto Wayne Spencer and have a look here. He's still stuck behind that HSV ahead of him, and you can see the gap ahead is just exploded. He was on the tail of Hobson just a corner ago, and that gap now is 10 car lengths. Oh, is that Cracker and Nolan going to go side by side as I'm messing with my cameras? And yeah, Cracker's actually gotten through on Nolan heading into turn 6. What a move. It's not done yet, though.
Move.
It's not done yet. We might catch it on replay if we get a chance, but they've got...
He went the long way. He went the long way around as well. He went around the right-hand side, and Nolan was good enough to leave him the space too. That's well driven.
Nolan almost had to go the long way around there, and he almost went all the way around coming onto the main straight, but Cracker's got that move done and consolidated, and this group of 4 will battle on. What a nice passage of passing there. Nolan coming onto the main straight got the rears lit up as they were trying to get through on Cam Rutledge there. A bit of a madhouse, and they're going to be stuck behind Cam again coming in. Oh no, Cam shortcuts turn 3 and gets well out of the way.
Yeah, back to the lead battle at the moment as well. Rosella is just starting to get an extra car length or two on Lime Mitch, but Pete Savage has well and truly caught Lime Mitch at the moment, and he's going to be eyeing off an opportunity at turn 1 if he gets close enough this time around. If he can get the run out of this corner right, which is the one he's had the problems with all night long, that's not too bad, but he'll be in position to have a stab here, I think.
Yeah, and you can already see that lime green skyline getting much, much bigger as we go back. Oh, that's the wrong way. Michael.
Got overlap. He's got overlap down to turn 1, and that's an easy pass at the end of the day for Pete Savage. Job done. Now, can he set out after Luke Rosella and hunt him down in the last 7.5 minutes?
Now, if Lime Mitch wants to buy into this, he needs to get onto the tail of Peter Savage and follow him like his heart depends on it, and try and make the move back as quickly as possible, because even with such a bad pass, such a bad exit there, it's Peter Savage just has the pace in the straight line to go past. They're going to come across Mike Coulston on the left-hand side there as we go back on board with Peter Savage, and that's Rhodey as well. And Luke Rosella is going to be Savage's next target as they bound over the curbs.
It's 1.2 seconds the margin, and the sector markers for Pete Savage look pretty healthy as well. He was already a 10th quicker in sector 1, 3/10 quicker in sector 2. So what will it be when they get to the line this time around? Lime Mitch is doing a pretty remarkable job. Oh, Rosella's done some lawn mowing and he's around. He's done the Pete Savage trick. He's off.
I just caught that at the corner of the shot there, so we'll come have another look at the replay. So we've got Rosella here coming through the final 2 corners.
Way too aggressive at turn 12. Tried to take the curb, but he just carried way too much speed.
And that was it. She went around.
Now, he's into 3rd place after all of that, so that means that Pete Savage is back to the lead. Rasmussen is in 4th, but he's not close enough to really have a go. He's going to be relying on another mistake from Luke Rosella to give him any shot
of getting onto the podium.
I've just tracked back as well to the battle between Cracker, Brenton Hobson, Wayne Spencer, and Scott Nolan, and Crackers must have made some sort of mistake because he's now down in 10th. So that must have been a lap or two ago because it was showing last lap around a 110 for him.
Yeah, the actual fact before that it was a 132 as well.
Yeah.
He must have had an off in the final sector somewhere because the sector time for that particular lap is off the Richter scale.
Yeah, so unfortunate for Cracker. He was running very well in that Sierra. We've just jumped back on board with Lion Mitch for this battle between the top two of the field. And let's just ride on board with these two guys for a lap and see what they do. We'll turn the volume up a little bit more as well so you get to hear it nice and loud. Excuse me while I figure out my cameras. There's the one I wanted.
Meanwhile, while the camera's trained on there, Lion Mitch has done, I think, just about all he can to stay with Pete Savage. They're coming up on a little bit of traffic now, so that's in the form of Adam Kerrison, and just ahead of him is Matt Cecil. Now Kerrison's already a lap, actually he's 3 laps down. He'll be 4 by the time they get to the flag, and Matt Cecil is the last car on the lead lap at present.
So there we go. You can see the sort of difference between those two drivers and the two ways those two cars make pace. Of course, the Sierra very quick in a straight line. We've got 4 minutes left, so that will equate to about 4 laps. Remember, it'll be +1 at the end of the race as Lion Mitch is really ragging the Skyline, getting some drift style out of turns 1 there. But he really needs to get a good run out of here so that way he might be able to pounce as the Sierra has to take an earlier braking point and a longer braking zone for the run into Dandenong Road. But that Sierra just has so much pace in a straight line though.
Yeah, it's got some legs, hasn't it?
Certainly does, and it's good to see it at a track where it's able to actually use those legs. We've seen a lot of really sort of narrow, short, twisty circuits, and that's really hampered the Sierra's viability. But here, it's turned into something of a world beater here, and for the ringer for Peter Savage, it's a matter of how much can he hold on.
It'll be the first Sierra win since Cracker's win
Cracker
back at
Simmons
round
Plain,
2
yeah.
at Simmons Plain. So it hasn't really had a chance to show what it's capable of, but at a horsepower track, it's certainly come of age here. The next battle behind the leaders that is really shaping up here is, can Brenton Hobson get past Wayne Spencer in these last couple of laps as well? Wayne's been holding on for dear life. Hobbo's had a couple of minor half-hearted lunges, but just trying to line him up out of some of these corners to get the drag, but Wayne's equal to the task and managing to hold position at the moment. Race control issues, a penalty for Cam Rutledge. He's currently out on circuit, so he's just come across the back section of the course down at turns 6, 7, and 8, so he will have picked up a track cut there, and he's about to conduct a drive-through right now.
So we're on board now with Brenton Hobson as he goes for the move at turn 4.
Savage around to Dandenong Road. Sorry to cut you off, Flood. He's around. He's surrendered the lead to Lion Mitch. He did this, probably at least 15 minutes or so ago in similar circumstances.
And he just got in such a huge gap on Lion Mitch as well. Lion Mitch must have made a mistake in the first part of the lap. But again, just locked the rears there on the entry to the corner, and he was around. Oops.
Heartbreaking, only with 1 minute and 3/4 to go, +1 lap. It's going to be a Herculean effort for him to get back to the top spot. Now, Lion Mitch has just come out, or he's come in behind Cam Rutledge, who's just served his drive-through, but Cam's going to let him through here at turn 1. But bizarre circumstances. We've seen some mistakes from a number of drivers tonight that you wouldn't normally see these mistakes from. Hobbo's made a couple. Pete Savage, I know he's not immune to them. He's only been racing with AMS Oz and the TCAC guys for about the last 12 months, but that's
really uncharacteristic mistakes tonight, just popping up out of absolutely nowhere.
And I think the mistakes that are happening now are fatigue mistakes. These cars aren't easy to drive, and we've been told that all series and all season. They're fun to drive, sure, but they aren't easy, and they're really things you got to wrangle around. And it's certainly not a GT3 machine, as we've already said tonight. So a bit more of a difficult prospect for Peter Savage in the Sierra, and he's just had a moment right when it's not been wanted.
No, certainly not. Time ticking down inside we're about to go inside the last 30 seconds, and the leader has crossed the line. So we're going to it's time plus 1, I believe, isn't it?
Yes.
For this setup. So we're banking on about 42 laps if we were going green flag to green flag. So we're going to get 41.
So it'll be pretty close.
41?
No, it'll only be 40.
No, 40.
Yeah.
40. Sorry, 40. My mistake. 40. So just short. So that's about 126 kilometres of the race duration tonight.
That's some quick maths. How'd you get that one sorted so nicely?
Well, when I did 42 laps, it was just on 130, and it's a 3.1k circuit, so you deduct 6.
Ah, nicely done. That's the sort of top level analysis we've been sorely missing here on the ATCC streams. It's been a lot of fun to do these with Kiwi and myself and have our normal banter, but sometimes it is good to get the pros in as well to help us out.
As I think Kiwi mentioned on the Lakeside stream, he said, thanks to Nether for showing us how it's really done. But no, I wouldn't detract that from you guys. You guys steal the show with this one. I'm just a support act on this one. It's a bit the other way over at Outwell Broadcasting, but nonetheless, us commentators, we've got to look out for each other.
And that we have done very nicely.
White flag is out for Line Mitch. He's taken the white flag and got a little bit of lap traffic and still holds a comfortable 3.1 second margin over Pete Savage with just on 3 kilometres to go.
And you really can't fault Lion Mitch's performance tonight either. Despite having that spin behind, well, thanks to a bit of contact from Brenton Hobson and being held up in traffic, if you take those moments away from him, he's run a flawless race, and he's really deserved this victory. Yeah, and had it not been for those moments in and around the pit stop, he would have been 10 seconds up the road. So it's really a nice escape from the 4th place for Lion Mitch, which has become the meme across both here in ATCC and Supercars and GT3 as well.
Sorry, Flood. Hobbo just got into Wayne's Spencer. I'm wondering if Wayne Spencer out of fuel, or something's gone wrong there, because Wayne had been staying ahead of Hobbo for quite some time. There was a bit of contact at turn 4, and now Wayne's ended up behind Hobbo. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but the race leaders crossed the line. So Lion Mitch has got the victory. So that's another, I think it's his first, it's his first victory on the season to go with his podium finish at Calder Park in round 1.
Yeah, Peter Savage comes home 2nd, Luke Rosella 3rd. It's Damien Rasmussen coming home in 4th. Our pole sitter for the evening. Scott Nolan will come across the line in 5th place. He was the winner of that HSV battle late on. Rhodey's a few laps down, and there's Hobbo and Spencer, who squabbled all the way to the line, finishing in 6th and 7th. And we've got a little bit of a gap in proceedings before we have the next car to come across, and that will be Brock Harvey down in 8th. Cracker, unfortunately, down in 9th, yeah.
And Brunswick will round out the 10 now. Will Devonish has got Steve Bulger on the last lap as well, so that moves him up to 11th. So that's about as good a damage or limitation I think a driver you can do. Only up 1 spot from where he started, so he probably would have been targeting top 10, but I think he'll probably have to just walk away tonight knowing that there was some good points that were on offer for Hobbo, and those couple of mistakes have probably just kept that championship at least a little bit tighter going into next week.
And on the note of Steve Bulger as well, he actually managed to get to the end on those old tyres. So congratulations to Bulger for that one.
Yeah, up 4 spots, finishing in 12th. And just having a look to see who the primary mover and shaker was all night long. And nobody really gained any more than Brock Harvey actually gained 5 spots. So he was the man who gained the most amount of spots. And the man who lost the most amount of spots was Termo with 6.
Yeah, but none of them could hold a candle to our race winner tonight. Lion Mitch up 4 spots as well, so he had a fair bit of movement this race, and that lime green Skyline has gone to the top for the first time this season. I think that's the first win for a Skyline this season as well in ATCC, and that means I think every physics base has a win now then, except for the Volvo. The Volvo hasn't taken a victory yet, so Luke Rosella and Hans Brunswick haven't cracked the top step of the podium, but it's been a wide variety of cars making the championship battle.
Yeah, I'm just having a look through the results now just to see who's finished with what position. So yeah, we've had a win for a Mercedes, we've had a win for Sierra, a win for the Nissan, we've had wins for the VL, and the only other one, the ones that haven't had any victories, you're right, are the Volvo, and there's one more there. The VK hasn't had a win, but it's on the same base, I guess, as the VL, you can call it. And the BMW hasn't had a win either.
Yes, but that is the same physics package as the Mercedes. So with Will Devonish, yeah.
Now, there's a very important thing to note out of this flood. I'm just reading through this now. If my eyes are not deceiving me, this is the first time all season that we have not had a Synergy Sim racing car on the podium.
Oh, yes, you are right. That is correct. And we did make mention mid-race that this has been a bit of a bogey track for them in the past, and none are more true than that statement right there. No podiums, no Synergy Sim racing cars on the podium. This is after they locked out the podium last round. But we do have our podium sitters in the booth, and Nether, if you'd like to give them a little bit of a talking to.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. We may as well start from the very top. We'll start with Lime Mitch, and well, Mitch, there was a little bit of an interesting dilemma at pit lane entry late in that one. Definitely no fault of your own. Probably a little bit of having to get down to the speed limit at such a short rate of time, and a bit of contact. That you probably thought that was a bit of a setback for you when that happened.
Yeah, it was probably just ended up being a racing incident. I got caught behind Wayne a bit, and then I think Hobbo just got caught out a bit. I was a little bit worried that Rosella was going to get past, but in the end, it didn't seem to make too much of a difference overall.
And you didn't seem to make too many mistakes all night long either. I mean, there was a couple of moments where you had some wheels in the air on a couple of curbs, which wasn't too bad, but you did keep a cool head for most of that one. And at the end of the day, the race sort of came back to you when Pete Savage just made a couple of uncharacteristic mistakes. And the last of those was only a couple of minutes from the end of the race.
Yeah. That was something I was quite stressed about from the start with the Nissan. As soon as you get on two wheels, it's pretty much gone. I had my third and final track cut about 25 minutes to go, so that was awfully stressful.
Yeah, we did have a bit of a look. You got, I think, one track cut very early on, and then you had two track cuts in a space of about 3 laps not long after you stop as well. So you were probably stressing a little bit, I'd imagine, having to take it very careful coming down the back section of course. I take it that's where most of them you picked up?
No, most of it was turn 1 and 2, because that's what kicks the car up and puts it off balance.
Okay, well, at the end of the day, you've kept your head clean, aside from a late scare with those track cuts, when you've taken your first victory in the ATCC series, goes with your podium at the very beginning of the season. So, job well done.
Thank you.
All right, we'll have a chat to Pete Savage on P2. Pete, you had a little bit of a struggle on handling the car tonight. There was a couple of incidents in qualifying where you spun off the final corner and sort of struggled to set a lap time. You did end up with the pole, but in the race, it was a completely different part of the circuit where you had your troubles.
Yeah, tonight was actually my first time in the car, and it just didn't feel right for me. Probably only got about 10 or 15 laps that I actually completed in practice, yet I was in the entire thing. I just, for some reason, could not control that Sierra, but if I could keep it straight, it was really, really fast, and I am honestly just happy to even finish the race that high up, even with the pace that I had in qualifying or practice. It was really hard to drive. The tires went out really, really early on, and I probably would have two-stopped if everyone else did, like 100%, because they were absolutely gone. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy with how that ended up.
Yeah, after coming off the high of last night with the GT3 Sprint Series title and jumping into, I guess, completely different machinery, a bit of a hard sort of car to get your head around. And I did hear during the early part of tonight that you pulled your wheel off in some form or another. Do you want to shed a little bit of light on that one for us?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go into the story of how it happened, but part of my wheel is broken, so the left side of my wheel does not actually bolt down properly to my desk, and sometimes when I lose control of the car and I snap it, I occasionally pull my steering wheel off my table.
Wow. Okay, so it looks like we might have to get you a proper sim rig, I think, after all this one, if you're doing some damage to your desk on that occasion. Well, nonetheless, you've had apart from the mistakes, you've had a pretty solid night. You've got to be happy with P2 and job well done, and looking forward to seeing what you can do next round.
Definitely.
And a man who finished in third place was Luke Rosella. Luke, you've taken a little bit of time to, I guess, acclimatise to the Volvo. Your results haven't sort of been what they were tonight, two different tracks beforehand. But what sort of clicked for you tonight with the Volvo to launch you up the order into P3? Started with a good qualifying.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising qualifying. I was struggling in practice to sort of get some good race pace going, but yeah, like I said, pretty happy with quality and sort of let things happen around me in the race. Had a decent start, and people SSR guys started making mistakes, and found myself in a pretty good position after the pit stops. When Lime, I think, had a bit of an incident. And yeah, pretty pissed off for myself after making that mistake, because it cost me a win maybe.
Yeah, I think very close to costing you a win. Talk us through that as well, because we've seen a couple of drivers tonight that just sort of understeered a bit wide or got a little bit too greedy at the final corner trying to get that run onto the main straight, because it is a pretty long straight and horsepower is everything here at the home of horsepower, Sandown. What was your take on that? Were you just trying to maximise your front straightaway, or just a driving error on that one?
Yeah, a driving error. I gotta admit, I was a lot under pressure from Brute, because I knew that car is an absolute rocket around Sandown and tonight as well. So I just gotta push hard, and yeah, I tried to carry as much speed as I could on the last corner to get a good run. And actually, yeah, I was surprised that car did that, because I did that in practice and it didn't sort of snap on me. But yeah, made a costly error, and it cost me a good finish. But yeah, still happy with the third place though.
Yeah, definitely. Nothing to be frowned about with third place. So you've had probably 3 rounds now with the Volvo, and this is the best result of them yet. Do you think you've finally sort of come to grips with how the car handles? And given we're going to a couple of different circuits coming up with Sydney Motorsport Park and Oran Park after that, do you think that's going to play into the Volvo's strengths a little bit more? Or do you think we're going to sort of see maybe what happened at Lakeside as sort of being the way that the Volvo is going to go back to?
I don't think anything could get any worse than Lakeside, I don't think. But
We've got to keep in mind, I guess, too, that there were a couple of tyre issues back then as well with the Volvo, which have been fixed. So it's probably not a fair comparison.
yeah, Goodyear forgot to give us front tyres. Anyway, I think we should do pretty well in Oran Park. I don't know about Sydney. It's got that long straight at the pit straight, but yeah, I think it'll be very strong at Oran Park. But I don't know about Sydney, but we'll wait and see.
Well, we haven't got too long to wait and see. We've got the next round coming up, I think, in about 2 weeks from now. But in between then and now, you've got a bit of time to see what the Volvo can do. And congratulations on third place.
Thanks, mate.
Thank
you. I'll hand it back to you. So what do we sum up out of tonight?
Oh, we can see that it's a bit of a weird night because qualifying and practice made it look like the Synergy Sim Racing guys were going to stretch out a massive advantage over Devonish. We talked extensively about that pre-race, but as it stands, I've been sent the corrected provisional points, and Hobbo does take the lead of the championship. That much wasn't ever in doubt, but it's only a 5-point gap, a 4-point gap actually, to Will Devonish down in second. So they're separated by 4 points. Scott Nolan is in third with 204 points. He's 2 points further back from Devonish. And then it is Liam Mitch with that win, rocketing up the order into 4th. And Damien Rasmussen now 7 points behind Liam Mitch for that battle for 4th. So it would be very appropriate for Liam to finish this series 4th place, seeing as that's what he's absolutely best at. But
Don't jinx it. Please don't jinx it.
but what I take out of this is that on a night when Devonish was all about damage limitation, Synergy Sim Racing didn't make him pay. They didn't lock out the podium like they did last time out at Hidden Valley. So it's not nearly as bad a pill to swallow as what we were expecting at the top of the show.
No, I completely agree with you in that one. And if I look a bit further down the order as well, given the mixed bag of results that we had tonight as well, it's not just the top 3 that you sort of got to look at here. Getting down into the latter stage of the top 10, so Hans Brunswick, Wayne Spencer, Brock Harvey, all those guys have closed up as a result as well. So there's only, what have we got here, 6 points separating those 3 guys in 6th, 7th and 8th. So again, with just 2 rounds left, and still a lot to play for everybody inside the top 10.
Yeah, and those next 2 rounds will be Sydney Motorsport Park in 2 weeks' time on the 7th of October, and Oran Park another 2 weeks after that on the 21st. That will be the season finale for the ATCC, the inaugural season of ATCC for Automobilista Australia, and it's been quite a fun season so far. I will say thank you very much, Nether, for filling in on commentary tonight.
Pleasure.
And thank you very much for everyone in the live chat watching along with us. And thank you to our racers and to Brock Harvey for his work on the mod. I've been Michael Zolivari, also known as Floodman11. We will see you very shortly for the next round of the season. Peace out.